Beyond this door, what we have is a new victim. This victim is the maintenance man. He suffered a very unusual and strange demise. What happened to this man was nothing short of a horrific nightmare that ensued for 2 weeks. This man was a victim. What happened here was this man went into this door, and behind it was something unimaginable. It was nothing, and that is precisely what killed him, in a sense. It was nothing. There was a man. He was locked in that room, and how he got locked in there remains a mystery at the moment, of course, and the timing could not have been worse because the building was closed for the next 2 weeks due to the holiday season. So he was trapped in there with no way to get out, no cell phone service, couldn't possibly call anybody, no food, no water, making him malnourished, and no meds for his diabetes. So when the building reopened after 2 weeks, there in that room beyond the door was the dead maintenance man / activist. So, let's find out exactly what happened here. One thing that the detectives found right away that was very curious, there was a deleted phone call in the archives. In the archives, phone calls get deleted 30 days after they were initially deleted that will be fully erased then from the archives. This is a building and a business where every phone call is recorded and monitored for purposes of, learning and discovering information and for protection and so on and so forth, basic stuff. So, this phone call took the place the day of the victim going missing. Going to play you the audio of that right now between two people. The first man speaking of the signatures is his friend or his helper, somebody who was going to help him out with something that the maintenance man / activist was very passionate about doing. The second voice that you hear is going to be the victim. I'm going to play you the audio now. I've limited it to the portion that is imperative to the case. Okay, here it is. Signatures needed. I can meet you right away after you rally up some support. We have one shot at this. The governor is a busy man, and I'm lucky to have enough time to get just a few moments of his time. I know. I have to figure out when to schedule my lunch break. And I'll be on the floor hollering at everybody for support. Okay, good. So what about tonight? Should we be busy tonight, you think? I mean, I don't know the market all too good. Well, 10 to 1, that could work. See you right after. Appreciate you giving me the chance. Okay, good. Don't be late. I won't have another opportunity for you like this. Goodbye. So, as we were learning from this conversation, basically, this was an opportunity for the maintenance man to get some sort of answers in the form of lawsuits, basically, that were going to be filed against the very rich CEO and business owner that operates this building. The man at the very top, the leader, if you will. So his name is Peck. We'll call him Mr. Peck. So he, the victim, may he rest in peace, was looking into getting a bunch of signatures signed, and then this was going to be presented to the governor. It was just this very slim chance, this very tiny window of opportunity, a slither of time that he was able to pull this off. He had somebody that he knew he was able to contact. He got back to him. He said, if you get enough signatures from people, then you got to turn this in right away, and we'll be able to file this against Mr. Peck. So that's how this all started looking in one direction. We have at least somebody with a motive at this point. So the owner, Mr. Peck, somebody very rich at the top. I mean, Do people like this often commit murderous crimes? Not really. It's usually white-collar crimes, but, nonetheless, we will consider every suspect in every case that we come across. So, there we are, and we are currently looking into other avenues of clues. So, here was one thing that was really, really interesting, okay? So, not only was there no missing persons report, which you might think would seem rather odd, okay? But the victim did live by himself, and again, the timing of this was horrifying because, as noted earlier, the building was closed for 2 weeks due to the holiday. So there wouldn't be anybody from work calling a missing persons report, saying, hey, guess what? He hasn't been showing up to work. What's going on here? Because it was closed for 2 weeks. Nobody was there. So, nobody would have reported him missing. So that part does not help, because it doesn't exactly give a time frame of nefarious activity done by others around. It doesn't exactly help with the case any bit. So, anyways, moving on here. Tearing the building up, searching it upside down and right side up, and diagonally every crevice was searched in this building, okay? And we went through every possible thing. We had to find alibis, establish leads, and everything we possibly could. And so, with Mr. Peck, okay, we did find that he went to the hardware store. And what we found was he went to the hardware store, and he bought a bunch of random equipment. It was stuff to help around the house, stuff that you and me have in our own garages. Nothing out of the ordinary. And then he also returned a bunch of older stuff. Okay, so like I said, nothing really suspicious about that. And then he got a bunch of store credit, and he went to the kiosk, and he made a copy of his truck key. Okay, nothing too out of the ordinary there. So, beyond that, what we ended up doing was trying to see about the janitor. Because one thing that should be on everybody's mind is, even though, yes, it was closed for 2 weeks, how is this place not checked thoroughly before being closed down? Because, hello, that's, those are precautions you take. You don't just let this slide. So, anyway, we're trying to figure out what's going on with the janitor here. We're trying to see what's going on. We see that his clock rings. He was clocked into work that day, and he was there. He was there for all day, basically. It was a long shift and everything. It was all, provided, backed up, and accounted for. We saw it right on the screen, okay? So here we're like, okay, was this negligence? What happened here? How could this go so wrong and somebody have to die because of this? We're really trying to figure out what's going on here. So, anyways, here's another interesting thing that definitely will just give you the chills, okay? So, based on that audio footage, okay, we were listening to that. And here we go. We looked at the nighttime, as was suggested in the call, because they were basically agreeing that was going to be the busiest time, and he had to schedule his lunch break so that he could use his lunch break to go out there and be an activist and try and get a bunch of signatures on his clipboard and go forward with the lawsuit and everything. We cannot find this man. Okay, this is beyond messed up. Okay, we went through the camera footage. We even started, a good 2 hours before nightfall, or before even the sky was dimming, and we don't see anything. We don't see him at all in the footage. So we're going, what's going on here? The door is just shut. There's nothing. We don't see anything out of the ordinary. Nothing unusual. Just people walking around, but it's not him. So, nothing. No people with clipboards or anything. So, this was not going well at this point. So, then, this is when things took a turn. So, there was something we discovered in our warrant. that it was for the door, the very door, mind you, that locked him in to his death, to his demise. So we looked at the work order put in, and you know what's crazy? There was no work order, okay? But it was in the completed work orders files. What exactly does that mean? How are we supposed to interpret that? So here we go, seeing that the work order for the door that killed somebody was fixed. It says it was fixed. Something's not right here, folks. How is the door fixed? Explain to me this. How can a door be fixed if a man couldn't escape it? And it made him die. It made him starve to death. That's something is not right here. Something is not registering in the common sense department. So, this is when we decided to try something, and it actually paid off. You know, sometimes when you have a couple different investigators, detectives, a couple different inspectors, however you want to call it, it's good to have other opinions, because you find out things that you wouldn't have found out. You hear things from another perspective, and hearing things actually is what caused the turn in this case. What we heard was two different interpretations of the phone call that was recorded. I'm going to go ahead and play it again and see if you can figure out what we heard, or if you thought what I originally heard. I'm going to play it for you right now. Okay, good. So what about tonight? Should we be busy tonight, you think? I mean, I don't know the market all too good. Well, 10 to 1, that could work. See you right after. Appreciate you giving me the chance. Alright, now I'm going to play it for you one more time. I want to see if you can catch it. Okay, good. So what about tonight? Should we be busy tonight, you think? I mean, I don't know the market all too good. Well, 10 to 1, that could work. See you right after. Appreciate you giving me the chance. And what we have was an answer hidden in plain sight. See, when half of us investigating this heard this audio, what we thought we heard was him giving him odds or a ratio. We thought he was saying 10 to 1, it's going to be busy, as in, hello, it's going to be very busy. 10 to 1, that means clearly it's more likely to be busy than for it to be not so busy. So, after hearing tonight from the other caller, here we go thinking, okay, he's talking about tonight. But what he actually was saying was a time frame. He actually was saying 10 to 1, as in the time 10 to 1, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So this man was actually, the victim was giving the other caller a time frame. So that was eye-opening. That was shocking. So then what we decided to do, we looked at the footage again, and we decided to start playing it between the times of 10 and 1. Well, we obviously jumped back a little bit earlier and a little bit later, but the point is we made sure to cover between 10 to 1 to see exactly when he showed up. And what we did, I'm going to show you right now, if you would take a look. This is what happened in the moments of the footage before the disappearance. Watch closely. The door is open. It is propped open by a cone and the light is on. All of a sudden, all the lights went out in the building. And if you can count it on your hand, it was just a matter of a few seconds. But then look at what you see. The door. It's shut again. As we see for the rest of the footage, for the rest of the day on the door. So, here we go. We have ourselves looking at the disappearance that took place. Because this door, there's hours and hours of footage of this. This door was never opened again until the body was taken out. That is a solidified fact in this case. So, this is when the case went from 0 to 100 very, very quickly. Because now we got a couple of things to worry about. For one thing, where is the cone? Where is it? it is nowhere to be found. The footage just goes down to black, and here we thought there was something wrong with the cameras, but no, the lights went out. Sure, it was just for a few seconds, but somebody had access to turning all the lights out, and then clearly that door is shut, and it ain't opening again until it was too late. So, we're trying to figure out exactly what went wrong here, and where is this cone? This cone is no longer there propping up the door that was doing it beforehand. And when you search this place with a warrant and you don't find a cone, but you see it in the footage, that strikes us as odd. Okay, and that should strike you all as odd as well. So this is just getting weird. So yeah, there's a work order that says that this door was to be fixed, or was already fixed. It doesn't say when, so there's very, very interesting trying to figure this out. So now what we do is we go and have a preliminary interrogation with Mr. Peck, because we see here that he has a motive. So we go ahead and we go in to see Mr. Peck. Okay, he invites us inside, and he's sitting on his desk, all lazy. He's got his feet propped up on the chair next to him and everything, and he just presses a few buttons on his fancy laptop, and all of a sudden it just brightens up the room and turns the air vents on and everything. And we're like, okay, let's have a talk. So here's what we need to understand from you, Mr. Peck, and we're giving him the business here. We're explaining how this something is not right here. So what he's telling us is that the janitor would have had access to the door and the lights. He has the key, and he knows all over the place that the janitor worked all day, and it's his responsibility to do the inspections. So if anything, he would be negligent in this case. So he's passing the buck. He's saying, hey, the janitor's got it. And you know what? He's kind of got a good point. I mean, at this point, the janitor would have access to everywhere, and as I was saying before, why wasn't everything inspected 2 weeks before, a day before 2 weeks of the building being closed? What's going on here? Trying to figure this out. So, we really don't know what to do from here. We're trying to establish the motive is there, okay? That's what I'm trying to understand. The motive is there, but there's a thing called reasonable doubt, folks. You can't just arrest somebody because they don't seem like the nicest guy in the world or the nicest woman in the world, okay? Mr. Peck had a motive, for sure. Did he come across a phone call? Yes. Did it say things about him and him getting lawsuits against him and costing his business a bunch of problems for the future? Yes. But is that proof of murder? Is that proof of negligence? Is that proof of anything? At this point, no. It is not. It is something, but you don't have anything to go with it. Okay? So, now we have a little chat with the janitor. And the janitor comes off as the most astounded human being in the world when you talk to him. You would have thought that this poor man was giving birth. Okay? This man said he didn't even work that day. And we're just as confused. We are simply, our jaws hit the floor with a fast, fierce velocity. How did he not work that day? Excuse me. Something didn't register in our ears when we heard that. He didn't work that day. Okay, we have it on the computer. He was clocked in. He worked that day. We have it for a long time. He worked that day. And he also claims he never said anything about the door. He didn't tell him about anything about the door. He didn't talk to Mr. Peck about any door. So that was another very strange situation. And that he said if there was anything to do with the door, he's not the one that did anything about it. Because it never went on to his list, his checklist, his to-do list or anything. It wasn't something under his plate. So, that being said, the confusion just continues to muster, and now we have, again, two possible suspects, but, and yes, there is a motive, but we don't have enough to go on. Again, beyond a reasonable doubt is very important. I cannot stress that enough. So, trying to figure this out. We decided we're going to go the extra mile here. We go looking through all the trash. We didn't find anything too crazy, too suspicious or whatever. So we take it all the way down to the dump. Yes, we got into the dump, to the filth, to the worst smells that nostrils can come across. That is where we went to. And what we found was something that definitely was a break in the case. This was, I'm not going to say a turning point, but definitely a break. We found a cone. We found a cone. And after looking very carefully at the footage, this cone, yes, appeared to be a match, but that's not enough. You need science to back you up. You can't just claim it was a match and be okay. So we did the right thing. We got some experts on the case. We took something to be used as an internal yardstick to be held in the same spot by where that door is on the footage, in new footage, showing how tall the cone was, to see if the cone that we found in the dump was the same height, so on and so forth, etc. And it was. It matched. And that's not the only thing that matched, folks. It also matched, that's right, you guessed it, well, possibly you guessed it, Peck's fingerprint. We got one fingerprint matched. This was big. This was certainly giant. Does this prove guilt, though? Once again, no, it doesn't. But it definitely gives us leverage with a second interrogation. I will say that. So we go ahead and have another chat with them. And at this point, we're still on friendly terms. I mean, we didn't have to use the handcuffs or anything. So we're talking to Mr. Peck. And we're letting Mr. Peck know a couple of things, a couple of very important pieces of information that I believe he would love to know about. So we say, all right, you know what? We got no camera footage showing the janitor coming to work that day. Okay? Why would that be? Okay, why exactly would he not go into work? And on top of that, we didn't see anything that would show that these so-called time cards are exactly, safeguarded? In other words, anybody could have had access to these time cards and simply clocked somebody in. It's not that hard to do, in fact. These are just kind of laying around by the time clock. They're not locked in a safe. They're not in people's wallets. They're right out there for anybody to grab. Okay? So, that being said, we told Mr. Peck as well that his fingerprint was found on the cone propping the door open in the trash, which then was taken to the dump site. So, why would that be? We really stressed and hammered this point to him. Why exactly would he grab a cone, which we have his fingerprint, and then throw it away, knowing that he didn't need it anymore? That was the way we put it. After that victim was dead, he didn't need it anymore, so he threw it away. So we really stressed that on him, and he was very pissed off. And he said, why wouldn't I throw away a cone? The door was fixed. The janitor told me so. So, he said the door is fixed, okay? We tell him, you said it was fixed? Well, clearly it wasn't fixed if he was stuck inside and he died there. So why did you report it fixed? Because we found it in the fixed work orders pile of all the information of showing everything that was completed. Well, his response was that the janitor told me it was fixed, so I put it as completed, because why wouldn't I believe him? So, we told him because he couldn't have been there and available to fix it, but you were there, and the maintenance guy, the victim, was likely going to grab some signatures in support of cutting you down some major numbers. Wasn't he about to do that? That's why you deleted that phone call recording beforehand. Is it true? Didn't you do that because of these reasons? And his response to that was simply, no, I don't delete any phone calls. My secretaries would be the ones to do that. And besides, you realize getting sued and attacked is all part of business. Do you really think stuff like that scares me? The janitor had to be there and probably was negligent again, as I said before. Why would he tell me that the door was fixed so I could throw away the cone? And another thing, knowing that we were closing for 2 weeks for the holiday season, why on earth would I give the janitor the day off? That doesn't make any sense. What we needed to do was establish some other things about this from other angles of this case. What we ended up doing was we had to seek out another way to prove the janitor wasn't there, because at this point the janitor's getting all the blame. So I'll get to that in a moment, but so basically what's going on here is we're saying, here's the big problem here, okay? This makes it even more scary. A possible third suspect, folks. Okay, all us detectives, we're talking to each other and we're going, you know what? He couldn't have done this all by himself, because there's one giant problem here, okay? He can't have someone turn off the lights, which is in the top floor of the building, okay, and then lock the maintenance guy into the room on another floor, while the timing of this, as you saw in the footage, it was just a few seconds, a few moments at that, of the fading out of the lights turning off. So he couldn't be in two places at once. So he had to have some help. This is where it gets really difficult, and your head just hurts and pain strains, and it cringes at the thought of who helped him then. It's not good. This is not good. So, trying to figure this out, we do have, again, the motive. The signatures that day was coming to Mr. Peck, and that day was the day before being closed for 2 weeks, where nobody would be there to rescue him. So, trying to figure this out, and we very easily also realized something. Technically, there's no way to prove with the phone calls that he deleted them. Sure, he could have listened to the damn phone calls, but he could have just as easily had his secretaries delete the phone calls for him later on, knowing that he didn't need them anymore. It's one of those things where it's there, but it's not going to prove anything. It is not going to prove anything in the court of law. So technically speaking, that didn't help us very much. It just helped a little bit establish motive. So we also contacted the electric companies, and they weren't showing any problems on their end for the entire area of shortages of electricity, surges of electricity going haywire, nothing wrong with the lighting. So right now, again, reasonable doubt does exist at this point. So this is not good. This is like a dead end at this point. What are we supposed to do now with this? So now we're trying to think about other things we could possibly do. So the janitor's not showing up in any footage. We looked into the janitor, and he didn't have anything really helpful to say. He said he was sick that day. He never went to work, so he couldn't have clocked in, even though it shows us, like literally shows us that he clocked in for the entire hours and all the numbers he did for each unit of work and type of work he did for each specific time frame. Showed us that he was there, but we don't have any footage of him going in the building, so it was bizarre, and it was hard to figure out. But what really helped us finally was we said, you know what? Here's where we're at with this. Okay, you said you went to the doctor's office. This is what we found out. Okay, you said you went there, but you're not allowing us to. And he said no. He's too embarrassed to talk about what happened at the doctor's office. So I said, you know what? Do you want us to keep you as a suspect? I mean, what do you want us to do? So what we ended up doing is we kind of worked our way into the middle. We met in the middle, as they say. We with permission, we breached the doctor-patient confidentiality agreement, and what we had it happen was the doctor, with the permission of the patient, said that he was seen, and they showed us confirmation. So that was able to protect his embarrassing privacy of what he was there for, but also keep him out of the range of suspects. So he was not there. He was not there that day. And we had enough evidence to prove that he was not there, especially since this doctor's office visit was at 10:20 in the morning. You realize it would have been impossible for him to make it from work at the time of the victim's disappearance and to then travel to the doctor's office. It wouldn't have worked. It's at this point, the who do you believe question, we have to go with the janitor, at least as far as to say that he wasn't there, okay? So if he were to have told Peck anything about a work order or a door being fixed like Peck is suggesting, it certainly didn't happen that day, and it certainly didn't happen at work, which therefore means it could have been a phone call, one, that we just didn't see of, so it could have been a phone call on a cell phone or something, or an email or some kind of a correspondence done of other third-party means, or could this possibly mean that we were even more confused now because, once again, the door was clearly not in good condition if it locked somebody in there to death, and yet it was claimed to be completed and fixed. So it added some confusion, but it cleared the janitor's name on this case. So that part we had a little silent golf clap for in victory. Anyways, a small victory at that. That was one part. So now, here we go. We're going in to as many other means as we can. We got a cone with the fingerprint matching. Doesn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt. We have a motive. We don't know how he could have been in two places at once. Somebody would have to be on the top floor with the lights. Somebody would have to be on a completely different floor of the footage shown the door being locked to kill the victim. So we ended up looking at, okay, let's retrace a little bit. Let's look at some of the work orders that we had put in. Let's just see what we had. So we're looking at the work orders, and we happen to find interesting little tidbit, a little factoid that we came across. It was a work order for getting the lighting installed in a secure app on the laptop for emergency purposes. We thought, hold on a second, like, hold on a couple of hard, long seconds here. There is a way to use the laptop to manipulate the lighting in case of emergencies. Which, then again, to be fair, this isn't exactly uncommon. There is a lot of businesses and buildings that can be controlled remotely with the lighting for when people are working at home, but working for another place. It is not, I'm not saying that this is an extreme circumstance or anything like that. I'm not saying that. But this was put in there. So that does carry an interesting point here. Could that have assisted Mr. Peck? So here's what we're doing now. We're going to arrest Mr. Peck. But it doesn't stop there. We have another plan here. Okay? We arrest him. We stash his belongings, which we're allowed to do when you make an arrest, okay? An official arrest. We go ahead and went to the hardware store. We asked the employees at the hardware store if they could help provide us some answers and maybe extend an olive branch to tell us what kind of a key Peck made a copy of that day. So, we already have proof that he was there, and we saw him go to the kiosk and everything. We have all that proven. But he told them that it was his truck key that was made a copy of, okay? And so then basically they just showed him to the kiosk and they just left him alone, okay? So we asked the hardware store staff if the kiosk kept a record of what kind of keys were bought at which time and everything. So, unfortunately, now that was no. The answer to that was no. Just the price, okay? So it didn't give us specific information, which would have helped, but instead, we thought of another way. Instead of trying to positively prove something, we tried to prove a negative, if this makes sense. So what we did was, because as luck would have it, if it only shows the price, what we did was we looked into each registered car of Peck's. And here is one good thing. Peck had very expensive taste. So a key of the magnitude of one of his vehicles would be pricey. So, not only this, but he paid a small fee at the kiosk by comparison, a very big comparison at that. Meaning, it very well could be a copy of the janitor's key to the bad door. So the door was more damaged, of course, after it was forcibly locked the day of the victim's demise. Like I said, this thing needed a work order for a reason, okay? So testing it would be a challenge at this point. But detectives had an even better idea. Again, with his belongings belonging to us at this arrest, we returned from the hardware store. We drove as slow as we could to make it intense as possible. Anyways, so here we are. We get to Peck. And this part is the part where we learn the most. Just by saying it out loud kind of gives us a clairvoyant sense of awareness and troublesome that was in Peck's brain. So, we told Peck, the janitor you keep pointing the finger at was in fact sick that day, but not as nauseous as your face makes me. The fingerprint on the cone you discarded and disposed of was suspicious, but not quite as suspicious as the work order that you forgot to put as complete. You having had handheld access to the lighting for the entire building with your laptop, that places you directly at the crime scene. While you tried to frame the janitor for negligence, he wasn't there that day, although his time card for clocking in was, and in and out of work was there. You easily had access to that as well. You also knew that with the holiday season coming up, you had the building closed for 2 weeks, which the janitor wouldn't have done his inspections, which would have found the victim alive. You caught wind of the phone conversation, and you did everything that you could to protect it from being attacked. Your business, that is. Your precious business and your assets. Or should I say yourself from being attacked. So, got another question for you, Peck. Do you fancy the local hardware store? I see you got a new key for your truck, correct? For your truck? Well, I'll make you a deal. I'll hang on to the truck key that was in your ignition when we just arrested you. And since you have a copy of that key as a spare, if you can go start your truck right now in front of us, you're free to go. Peck, I'll take your silence as a sign of guilt. You don't have another truck key, do you? Of course not, or you'd be halfway to the bar right now. And you don't want to tell me what kind of a key you had made a copy of, because that would solidify your guilt. That was the end of that conversation. Needless to say, the Miranda rights and everything forthwith was read to him, and a slur of insult. Peck was arrested, and he was finally charged with murder, found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. To summarize this case, time is still the #1 killer of us all, although politics is a very close second. In this case, it certainly was a mixture, a cocktail of both of them, with a sprint of evil on top. So, this was an opportunity for Mr. Peck to ruin another person's opportunity. The poor maintenance man was there to try and get some signatures from people to galvanize support to stop him and his company. He was going to do some lawsuits. It was going to do some damage against him and his assets, which would have been good for the majority of the people in the case. Mr. Peck heard this conversation, took advantage of that information, and sought to put a stop to it by any means necessary, including illegal methods, which in this case led to murder from malnourishment and so on and so forth. And that being said, he had to do what he had to do, so he tried his best to frame the janitor, and by sheer coincidence, the janitor did not show up to work that day, but by sheer coincidence going in Mr. Peck's favor, the building was going to be closed for 2 weeks, so it was exactly the perfect timing in that sense to commit this crime. So he did what he had to do. He did the lighting. He made it seem like you would have had to have 2 people. He couldn't have been the one to have done it all by himself. He clocked in the janitor with the key card to make it seem like the janitor was there the whole time, and he had the key. That's right, the janitor had the key. The single key to get to that death trap of a door. Without that, there is no door, there is no death. and so he had to go make a copy of the key so the fingerprints of his would not be possibly found on the key, so that he could get that death trap to work in his favor. And then he tried his best to manipulate the evidence with the work orders showing the door being completed as fixed, even though it wasn't, and for the evidence showing the laptop, which was able to control the lighting through a handheld methods, was not completed, even though it actually was completed. And yet none of that worked, and the real evidence, not the red herrings, led all the way back to him. So I will leave this episode with this, and pardon me for being teleloquent with my highfalutin language via my sesquipedalian vocabulary palette. Business is for the wicked. You cannot be friendly or zenadachial with partners or cohorts, especially without a contingency plan to legislate for vociferous, stentorian enemies with patterns of surreptitiousness. You must remain jocular at all times and coquettish with fate, or consider another career choice if you pertain more to a salubrious spirit for your jubilant nature. For a synonym for business at the end of the day is recidivism.